Art Samansky, and I have my own small public relations firm, the Samansky Group, and I'm also an adjunct instructor at SUNY at Old Westbury in the School of Business, and I'm a member of the Executive in Residence team at the School of Business. I joined the New York Financial Writers Association in 1964 as a business and financial reporter at the New York World Telegram and Sun. I had actually joined the New York World Telegram and Sun in 1959 and joined as a copy boy, about which I am still very proud. And then I eventually became a clerk in the financial department and eventually became a reporter. And my colleagues on the financial desk immediately told me that as soon as I was eligible to become a member of the New York Financial Writers Association, they were going to bring me into the organization. And they were absolutely spot on, because my memory is that the very day I was eligible, I was filling out paper, and I was very excited about it. And to me, the New York Financial Writers Association, from day one right through today, is a place where you build great relationships, great friendships, and you have at your immediacy mentoring. I can tell you that when I first joined the association, I was a young kid. I was in my early 20s. And as soon as I became a member of the association, as soon as I asked people questions about how to be a better journalist, how to do what I needed to do, there was always somebody immediately available, whether it was a colleague from my own New York World Telegram, or, if you will, competitors. Because one of the things is that at the New York Financial Writers Association, while you may be competitors, quote, during the day, close quote, when you are together at the association, those differences or that competition immediately melts away, and you just become really good friends. And to that point, I have numerous friends in the New York Financial Writers Association, and I could go on endlessly about it, but let me just name three to prove my point. So one of the first people I met at the New York Financial Writers Association, aside from my own colleagues at the New York World Telegram, of course, was Harold Gold. Harold at that time was with the Journal of Commerce, and he and I became instant friends. And when I say instant friends, it's a friendship that is truly cherished. I learned a great deal from Harold, but in addition to that, the friendship is long-lasting. Indeed, we are still close friends today. My children call him Uncle Harold, and even my older grandchildren know Uncle Harold. So that just proves the point about how long-lasting and important and great these relationships are. Another relationship that developed strictly through the New York Financial Writers Association was with the late Dick Honig. Dick was a former AP reporter, but when I met him at the New York Financial Writers Association, he was at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. And we became very good friends. And eventually, I worked for Dick at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, and I worked for him for 14 years. And we had a wonderful relationship. And that relationship continued even after I left the New York Fed. And he passed away recently, but we were friends right up to the time just before he passed away. And my family and his family are still in regular contact with each other. And then the third that I think I need to mention is Mike Candell. When I met Mike, he was at the Herald Tribune. And over the years, he has been of enormous assistance and guide to me as I built my career. And to prove the point about relationships, it's not just a relationship with me, but my eldest grandson, when he was in college, wanted to go into TV sportscasting. Mike took the time to spend time with him to talk to him about TV journalism, because at that point Mike was already with CNN. Actually, I think at that point he had retired from CNN. But nevertheless, he spent time with Evan, and Evan still talks about that and asks about Mike all the time. Evan, after paying his dues in some small markets, is now in Raleigh, North Carolina, where he is a TV sportscaster at Spectrum One. So the whole point of this is that the New York Financial Writers Association has always been, if you will, has been family. And it's something that I just cherish.
You have seen times change, especially with technology and some of the ways how you guys formed family then is now changed for journalism and journalists now. So why do you think an organization like the New York Financial Writers Association is still necessary and vital for the journalist community?
Okay, so I think there are two things. Despite all the changes that have occurred over the years, right up on through artificial intelligence, okay, it's still a place where you can build relationships, build friendships, learn from others who have expertise that perhaps you don't have, or have some knowledge that will help you be a better journalist. And people in the association are still sharing with one another. So despite all the changes, the very core of the organization has remained the same. It's family. Once you become a member of the New York Financial Writers Association, you can go to almost anybody and get help and guidance, and at the same time build enormous relationships.
So the Financial Writers Association is, of course, world famous.
Yes, it is.
For our financial follies.
Right.
So give me your best financial follies memories.
So the best are actually in the 50th anniversary book that was, when we had our 50th anniversary, we put together a great big book of all the great moments. But there are a lot of things about the follies. So let me try a couple of different ones. First of all, it was the camaraderie. Again, it goes back to that very basic core issue. Despite the fact that we were intense competitors during the day, when we showed up for rehearsals and we rehearsed for 2 nights a week for months, trying to get the script just right and getting our acting, if you want to call it acting, I'll put that in quotes, I'm not quite sure it was acting, by anybody else's definition, certainly not by a dictionary definition. But nevertheless, we were close friends and we helped each other to put on the performance. And there were a couple of things about the performance. First of all, there were numerous funny things that happened. They're all in the book. Most of them are in the book. But what made a lot of them particularly funny was the mistakes, the costumes that didn't work, the props that didn't work, the words to a song or a skit that was suddenly lost on stage. And I mean, just one, I don't know why this sticks out in my mind. I can't even tell you who the reporter was who played the part. But in one particular scene, the idea was to take a prop gun and shoot the bad guy. And just, no matter how hard the trigger was pulled, the prop simply would not work. And so right on the spur of the moment, whoever was supposed to be the gun handler, if you will, ran over to the bad guy and started to make believe he was beating him over the head with the gun. I mean, it was the ad-lib stuff. It was the crazy stuff that happened on stage that made everything so funny. On the other hand, there was the audience. And that's where it really got interesting, because the ballroom was packed with C-suite people and associates and PR guys, and the scripts were really sharp scripts. All the scripts were written by members of the association. So it wasn't like we had some scriptwriter who came in to do this. It was an internal process. And the barbs and all the attacks, if you will, about people, products, services. The coals, let me put it this way, not only did we take them over the coals, but the coals were really hot. And some in the audience did the grin and bear and took it well. And let's just say some didn't. And we knew when the some didn't that we had really hit a grand slam, not just a home run, but a grand slam. The ballroom itself, I don't have firsthand knowledge of this, but it's in the book, that there were railroad chieftains who used to bring their personal railroad cars into New York City just to attend the Follies. That was the big night. The night that was just a little bit smaller than Follies night, if you will, was the dress rehearsal night. And there, that room too was packed with family and friends, some of whom, as is often said, "I can't believe my father just did that," kind of comments. And each of us would get, I believe, if my memory is right, 2 or 3 tickets. And as soon as we got the 2 or 3 tickets to the dress rehearsal, which was a really big deal, private little deals were being cut to get extra tickets because you wanted to bring 2 children and you wanted to bring your wife, and 2 tickets weren't enough, and it would go on. And that too was a huge, huge event. And again, it goes back to the core issue. We all played nicely together, despite the fact that we were competitors. The other thing about Follies was that we used to play all kinds of practical jokes on one another during the rehearsals, during the dress rehearsal. We probably behaved ourselves reasonably well on stage on the big night, but backstage there were all kinds of pranks and little jokes played on each other, and none of them harmful, but all just to dig somebody. And those pranks were a sign of the tight relationship, because you don't tend to play pranks on people that you don't get along with. You have to really have a relationship. And that kind of pranksterism, for lack of a better term, continues to this day. And let me just take it out of the Follies for a moment, because it's one moment that I really enjoy this moment, okay? So this goes back a couple of years ago. And Britt called a meeting. I don't remember what the subject was. I honestly don't. But there was this meeting, and we all sat around a table, and I was clearly the oldest person at the table by a lot. I mean, it wasn't even close. And in front of everybody's place at the table was a can of soda or a can of iced tea or something along those lines, but not in front of my seat. There was nothing in front of my seat until Britt walked in and put directly in front of me an extremely large bottle of prune juice, because she said, "This is for the old guy." And she nicknamed me immediately as old guy, and I just burst out laughing. I will tell you that to this day, I take great pride in being called old guy. Other people in the association know about this little, if you will, prank or joke, or call it what you will. I take great pride in signing notes to this day to Brit. I don't sign art. I tend to sign OG, which is the abbreviation, of course, for old guy. And I can tell you that every time I go to the supermarket and pass the prune juice aisle, I immediately start to smile. And that's the way the association has been from the day I joined. Always great memories of really nice things that you can take to the bank.
So I'm gonna put you on the spot for a minute. Can you remember one of your favorite songs or one of your favorite characters that you played?
That I played? Okay, so the answer is any song that I might have sung was immediately taken away from me because calling anything I do singing would be, again, it's another word that will not fit any definition in any dictionary. My roles were primarily walk-on. My roles were sign carrier. My roles were pretty much say a couple of lines and try not to mess up. Singing was not one of them. I will say, on the other hand, that I guess playing Fanny Fox, the Argentine bombshell, in a skit was a moment that I think a lot of people may remember. But more importantly, there was some brilliant numbers that really talented people in the organization were able to pull off. And one of them, Bob Cosma, his song about being the modern day economist to the Pirates of Penzance, just trying to read those lines became impossible for many of us, certainly for me, and he was able to sing them as if, sure, it's not a problem. And that is a huge standout event for me.
So talk to me, you're in a new role now. You're no longer a journalist. You have morphed into, let's say, an executive advisor here on campus, and you also have your public relations business. So if you were talking to a group of young people, a group of young student journalists, what would you say to encourage them about the business of financial journalism?
Okay, I would tell them that there is probably not a news story. If I think hard enough, I can probably think of one, but nothing comes to mind that is not related to business, finance, or economics. I don't care what the story is about. War, gotcha, okay. Wall Street, something happening in Singapore. Sports, the enormous salaries that people are paid. Corporate debt, government debt. No matter where you look, almost every story has a core of business, finance, or economics. And that's why I think that it is just a tremendously exciting field to get into and to really master, because you're gonna love it. I will admit that when I first started in journalism, I did not know anything, and when I say anything, I mean anything about business and finance. And the minute I was exposed to it as a clerk on the financial desk, it just immediately got into my blood. And I began to see how exciting this world was. It was, you name it, and there was a business story involved. And so I would say to a young journalist, if you're planning a career in journalism, look first at business, financial, and economic journalism.
So you're no longer in the newsroom, you're more in boardrooms and classrooms. What do you miss about your life in business journalism?
The excitement. I mean, there was always, and I have no hesitation in saying that. I'm a print guy. All right, I worked for 2 newspapers and then a news service. But the bottom line was, every day was exciting. Every day was a challenge. Every day you had an opportunity to bring an interesting story to quote the community. I don't want to say the world, because while the New York World Telegram and Sun was a great New York City newspaper, it was a great New York City newspaper. I don't think people in London were reading the New York World Telegram and Sun. I may be wrong about that, but I doubt it. Or maybe one person or something. But it was the excitement of the day. Every day I walked in and I said, today I'm going to discover something new. And being in a newsroom, not only was it exciting for me, but watching my colleagues produce stories. It's the excitement. There's just absolutely nothing like it. I've been doing public relations for a very long time. It's exciting, it's interesting, but it doesn't have that extra sparkle to it that I had in a newsroom. Those were clearly extraordinarily exciting days.
So the media has come under fire in the last couple of years for some of the tone that we are in. Why do you think the New York Financial Writers Association is important, and speaking out on certain issues is important in this current environment?
Because I think journalists have a special role in the community, however you want to describe community. And I think business and financial writers especially have an important role, because, as I said before, almost every story has a financial angle to it, an economic angle to it, something of that nature. And I think it's important that journalistic organizations like ours, that are highly respected, speak out on the issues of the day to reinforce the importance of journalism. Because without good journalism, and despite some of the slings and arrows, I think journalism, American journalism today is a terrific journalistic exercise or enterprise. And I think that respected organizations like the New York Financial Writers Association speaking out on the issues add to the credibility and help to build the image of journalism, which I think too often gets the slings and arrows because people don't necessarily agree with what the news, the factual news is that is being reported. And that creates, I don't agree with that because they don't want to accept the facts.
So finally, let's end on a note of optimism.
Okay.
What gives you hope as you look at your years in the industry, and now you're someone on the outside looking in,
right,
but then you're also interacting with students, here at Old Westbury? What gives you hope when you look at that industry that you started with?
Okay, so I think the young journalists and the aspiring journalists are more than capable and are capable of really performing at a top-notch level and dealing with all the, if you will, the misinformation that is too prevalent in society, especially on social media. I don't think I'm saying anything that 100 other people haven't said 10 times a day. But I think they are attuned to that, and they know how to dig through and get to the facts. And I think that they know how to use platforms that I wouldn't even imagine that they use just day to day. to produce some terrific journalism. And I think the young journalists today are going to be absolutely outstanding going forward. And I think that they are going to get the credit that they deserve as they build their careers and bring news to the broader community, whatever it is. And now, that broader community is worldwide because they are constantly not just meeting deadlines for a newspaper or a television station or whatever it is, but they are also constantly feeding the stream, and they are constantly uncovering new information and important information that I think the world needs. And I think they're quite capable of doing it, and they are going to be stars. One more thing that I think is important about the New York Financial Writers Association, and it happened in the 1970s, and it's a moment that I think many of us, myself included, are very proud about, and that is we brought women into the organization. Up until that time, it had been an all-male association. But in the 1970s, through the leadership of some terrific members, we were able to bring women into the organization. It wasn't just that they should be in the organization, it's that they needed to be brought into the organization because they were going to make the organization that much better. And indeed, they did. Just one example, Maggie Klein of Reuters. Soon after becoming a member, it was only a couple of years after becoming a member, she became president of the New York Financial Writers Association. And one of the things that Maggie wanted to do was say, well, we are known for the Follies and we are known for our spring dinner, but I think we need to be known for more. And indeed, to that end, she started the Newsmaker Breakfast series and a couple of other programs as well. But the point is that even today, all these decades later, the New York Financial Writers Association still has professional and educational programs that benefit journalism, particularly business and financial journalists, but journalists in general. And that all started with bringing women into the organization because Maggie started that program. So that is just an amazing part of our growth and an amazing part of the New York Financial Writers Association.